Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you're listening around the world. This is Sedona Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Intuitive Guidance with Lindsay Marino. Today is Monday, January 19th, 2015. Thank you so much for everyone that's listening. I am so happy. Tonight we are going to talk all about the law of attraction journaling, which I'm really, really excited about. I absolutely love the law of attraction. I fully believe in it. And it's all about really putting that energy out from ourselves into the universe and create a life that we're supposed to be living. So I'm going to quickly read our bio for Michael Perlman, Dr. Michael Perlman, and tell you a little bit about him. Michael Perlman is a well-known Boston area psychiatrist and personal strategist, life strategist, whose focus is on the spiritual side of addictions, ego, or self-righteousness being the primary forms of addiction. He has dedicated his professional practice to helping others find their way through the whirlwind of thoughts about their lives to take charge of their destiny. Throughout his journey, he has used journaling as a way of gaining clarity and insight, and at a deeper level, as a way of listening to his soul. The process, which has morphed and changed over time, put him on the path that allowed him to take great strides forward in his own life. This work eventually led him to developing the law of attraction journaling. The program provided a direct route to self-realization for those willing to reveal their thinking, reframe it, and thereby change their consciousness and external reality. So I'm excited to welcome Michael to the show. Hi, Dr. Michael.
Hi there. Excuse me. Good to be on your show, Lindsay.
I'm so happy that you're coming on tonight because I feel like this is one of those topics that everyone needs to hear about. So I'm really, really excited to talk to you about it.
Great. I'm looking forward.
And I'm so curious because I know I read your bio, but I always get interested to learn about, the background of how you got into the law of attraction and how it came about in your personal life and how it kind of manifested for you.
Well, that's a long story, and in hindsight, I'm not entirely sure. I always wanted to be a physician, and then eventually, over time, I realized that my biggest problem was the dealing with my own inner turmoil and chaos and confusion, and that I would get whipsawed from one thing to another. And so I signed on to become a psychiatrist, which in Greek means healer of the soul. So I figured, you know what, I better start teaching what I'm learning. And I got a great deal from that physician training, psychiatrist training, and even more in addiction training, understanding it from a personal as well as a professional point of view, that it's not only healing the soul, but it's discerning the distinction of bondage of self and spiritual awakening. So pick a year, pick a date, and I'll tell you my level of consciousness and what program I was working.
Right. I know. I'm sure that everything's, like in the bio, it said things evolved and kind of, it's almost like you formulated this, but I'm sure every day is one of those moments of a learning experience, and I'm sure that the clients that you work with create this, almost like, when you have clients, you start to be the student, too, by learning from them.
Right. Oh, sure. Well, I would say everything I've learned has been my interaction with others, most especially my patients and the people I work with now in the Law of Attraction Journaling Program. I tell people, and I have for many, many years, that we're not getting better in this life. We're getting less caught up in our old tapes, our identity, our personality.
Right. Now, when you mention the Law of Attraction journaling, for those people listening, most of the people listening will know a little bit of the law of attraction. But if you had to sum it up in a few words, what would you say about the law of attraction? What's the best way you can describe the law of attraction?
The law of attraction is a very readily understandable way of understanding what goes back from the Bible, from the Hindu texts, from the Sermon on the Mount, and from even the latter 1800s, 1900s of William Wattles and James Allen, who said, "You are what you think about," and it goes on from there. So the clearer you are about what your heart desires, and the clearer you are about those thoughts or feelings that aren't working, you have your context for all the spiritual programs. And the law of attraction language put it in a perspective that is much more readily easy to grasp, much more graspable, and that is you experience what you think about, whether it's wanted or not. And that's pretty common sense.
Right. It makes so much sense. Now, do you notice as you talked about the writing, because I fully believe in the power of words and actually writing it, how does that, the law of attraction journaling, do you have a series of questions that you ask, or how does that work where you get people to write, and how is that powerful, the actual writing portion of it?
Well, it's not that I get anyone to write. It's if someone wants to learn about what's really going on in their life, the most direct route is to pay attention to what you think about. And more especially, unless and until you literally write down what you're thinking about any given topic or context and start to contrast what's uncomfortable and what's comfortable and what's desired and what's not wanted, then you're constantly at the effect of the whirlwind of your mind. It's like a school of minnows. Yes. You try to catch a school of minnows if you're sort of scuba diving or snorkeling. And unless you catch this thought and that thought and then put it down as to what's going on, maybe a topic, and we have various perspectives to look at your life, from just starting to get clear what your topic is, and one is the current reality, in other words, perhaps what's not yet quite right in your life. And then we go to what we call the enlightenment categories of appreciation and knowing and vision, and each has their own teaching prompts. And then we have that action perspective. So as you get clearer about looking at the thinking, not only putting it down is a major step, but starting to really experience what you think about, find the meaning of what you think about. It's one thing when people give you all sorts of guides and prompts, and they're really telling you about their experience. We want people to actually find their experience using their thinking and their circumstances. So it's so important to pull out of the ether, because the mind is a very, compelling argument. It'll keep you going from 6 ways to Sundays, or it's like it's changing deck chairs in the Titanic.
That's so true.
So you have to nail it. You have to put it down, this thought, and then you can change it, of course, reframe it as you get clearer, but you're getting clearer from a point of view of that third person, more of a sense of the observer, the watcher, mindfulness, if you like.
Yes.
Then things come to order.
That makes complete sense to me, because it's really interesting. I have this, I talked about it on my last show briefly at the beginning. I have this notebook that, it feels good. It's one of those, I have a thing with pens and writing things in a nice notebook that I feel good about and feel really grateful for. And I actually have this notebook that I filled things that I experience abundance. So it could be as little as finding a penny on the ground or just writing it down. Even though it happens and I'm grateful at that moment and feel that emotion, I do feel the power of actually having it in one spot. It's not like it could be dismissed so quickly. It's there, and I feel that energy to it. So I keep thinking about this law of attraction journaling, the power of that when I do that with Abundance Journal, and how I feel that feeling.
Well, you've nailed it in a very simple way. When I was a kid, there's a penny, Michael, my mother would say, or a dime or a nickel, you see, and look at this, it's a penny. Now, I never understood it. I mean, what's a penny? The whole point was later in life, the sense that there is abundance in life. And that moment of feeling the delight of finding something, it opens up to gratitude, appreciation. That's the point. And once you start harnessing that, you start to move in, let's call it a spiritual dimension, whatever word you give it, and then you start attracting from that.
Right. Now, some people might say, well, I always think of these things and I can't attract what I want. I want this certain job, or I want to win the lottery, or what do you say to those people?
I say, well, that's great. And do you want to be very clear about what your heart desires on the other hand, and all that stuff about you can't win the lottery and I can't get rich and it'll never happen to me, to really separate and see that you're not a human being having spiritual experiences. You are indeed a spiritual being having human experiences. And once you get clear that the heart desires, the spiritual dimension of you wants to be abundant and loving and be love and join the dance of life. With a cup runneth over, the table prepared before you, all that joyousness that is always already available, and separate out the egoic personality, the identity. And it's simply not an intellectual exercise. It's simply literally taking this thought, this situation. How does it feel? You know, what does your heart desire? What excites you? Put that down. And then you see, well, what's not quite right yet? What are you unhappy about, afraid of? And you put that down, but you keep them separate because they're separate structures. Separating your heart's desire,
that makes so much sense.
Your ego's desire. And then you're on the path of the purpose and the intention of the law of attraction. But this is a part that's missing, literally separating those two aspects of yourself.
Yes, it makes so much sense, because I have so many people that I've heard say, if I could only win the lottery, if I could just win the lottery, then I would be happy. But then when you get that money, you know, what is the purpose? I think it's amazing. I think we're meant to be rich in all ways. I fully believe that. But when you're not doing your purpose and you're rich, then you're going to eliminate that money so quick, it's just going to leave your hands. You're going to get it quick, and then it's gone, because you don't have a purpose.
Because your default is of poverty or lack. And it's nothing.
Exactly.
It's not. It's not wrong. The ego's position is a valid experience in life. The human being, the fears, the doubts, the defaults. It also says, look both ways before you cross the street. Don't talk to strangers. We were warned about certain things, and that's valid up to a point. Unfortunately, that we get whipsawed by, I want to be rich, but I can't be rich. I can't, and we lose that connection with our human beingness and its valid concerns and needs. And on the other hand, that we're part of a vaster universe of abundance flowing through us.
Yes. So when you work with are you still working one-on-one with clients right now?
I do. I love working one-on-one, but the focus is to develop this so our language is very clear. I'm teaching what I'm learning here, and it's accessible to people, and we're getting there. We're getting closer. We have over 300 some odd people in our journaling community. We have 10,000 Facebook likes, and we're getting some traction. And it has to do to the extent that I'm clear of languaging, the meaning and language of what this is about and how it works.
Yes. So can you tell us a little bit, I think this is so needed, because I feel like it took me probably, I don't know how many years, but really it's one of those things that you have to master. And I think that it's always going to be a learning experience, but with the law of attraction. I started to get into it in 2007, I want to say, when The Secret came out. But really, I thought that I got it then, and I don't think that I really fully grasped it. And I still think I'm still learning and experiencing. But it comes so easy to me because I know the process and the feeling, and I feel the emotion that goes with it. It happens quick, and it doesn't have to be difficult. But for those people that are in the program, the Law of Attraction Journaling Program, what would they, when they get involved in it, what will it look like to them?
Well, first of all, the Law of Attraction Journaling.com is our website, and you can, as soon as you go on there, you see join our free journal. and get it. Sign up for it. And with that, we'll be able to send you some links and information, and there's a regular series of emails about the various topics and the various perspectives and the 4 steps that give us some spiritual guidance about levels of becoming clearer and clearer, of working with the energy and information of our lives, what's wanted and what's not wanted. So it's not nothing rocket science about it. It's the willingness to simply take a look at what you want, what you desire, what you're fearful of or uncomfortable with, what's working, and put it down. And the putting it down, you sort of get a sense of looking at it from a third person. It's more objective. It's more simply energy and information. That you have those feelings, you are not those feelings, and then you can start to reframe them.
Yeah, and that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, we think so, and that gives someone the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, that all we do is we create a platform and a nice way and guide them. We have a Law of Attraction Journey Coaching Seminar every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And we just want to help you get clear about it, to see what works, to give the language some more and more, let's say, user-friendliness that makes sense, so that someone can just start and get going and start to experience results.
Right. Now, I'm curious. I always get curious to know of different stories that people have experienced. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Sure. There's any numbers of people. I mean, for example, let's say Steve is a very successful businessman. However, he had the idea to start a business. He started a business, and that was the easy part. And then he got into it, and he got caught up in the let's say the systems, the issues involved with the associates, the legal issues, the pressures from other competitors, and the fact that he was staying later and later, and the work was sort of the tail was wagging the dog, as it were, of his life. And he became depressed. He became fearful, and he was drinking too much. And a friend of his who was involved in the journal said, "Why don't you look into this?" And he did, and he signed up. And we started to work together, and what he did was to write out what was not working, what was where he felt miserable. In this case, he was focusing on his work, his job, and his career, business, and he got clearer and clearer of all those miserable things that were going on. And at some point, there was sort of a pause, and he said, "Wow, look at all this crap," and he got it. He became clear that an aspect of him, because it was part of our language, that he's a spiritual being having a human experience, he was clear of the misery he was feeling, and it was all encompassed in the language and the contents of what he wrote in his continuity. And then simultaneously, because this is a man that had a vision to create a business in the first place, and a family and kids, and is successful and knows what it is to live well, he started to write about what he loved, what he wanted, what he valued. And the more he developed, let's say, a contrast, appreciated that contrast between what was working and what was not working, and became clear of what was not quite right, and then what was his heart's desire, he could then take those reasonable and harmonious actions that moved him to handle those things that were not yet quite right, and build on and expand on what his heart desired. So it was really as simple as that. The difficult thing is that he had to tell the truth and look at himself and not only write down these things, but really see and feel the energy, the information that what was not quite right yet giving. At the same time, for him, he was very familiar with, wow, I have a dream, a vision, and he has all the energy to get things done. That was not his problem. His problem was separating his heart's desire, his spiritual beingness, from his human beingness. The goddamn people, the lawyers, the people that, blah, 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 the law, the government, and whatever it was.
And blaming
it was
everything
not one thing, it was another, but he saw it was just stuff.
Yes.
And
That's
addressable,
so
manageable, once he was outside of the tail wagging the dog.
that's an interesting story because it's funny when you get that aha moment. I'm sure his life, of course, has completely changed after that.
Well,
completely.
It did. He started to feel, drinking dropped away. Then he became, he was on antidepressant meds, and then he didn't need that anymore because he was getting more excited about looking at what was going on, and he had the power of simply, like that expression in his hands, he has the whole world in his hands.
Yes.
He started to see his whole creative matrix of his life, his personal destiny, the family, the business, all of that was in his arms. And all he had to do was simply tell the truth. What's that?
It's already here. It's so easy once you open up and pay attention to that. Yes. It's simply taking notes. Let's see, this, and this, and you start to discern what are your priorities. He became clear of how he wanted to be, what he wanted to have. The action was least of it. Yes.
The key thing was writing it down. Sure.
That's huge. I have a question because I fully believe in the law of non-resistance. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but the law of non-resistance, when you're doing the best that you can do, your vibration is increasing, and everything and everyone around you feels this vibration shift. And whether you're doing good things spiritually or you're finally finding your heart's desire, and it seems like the world is coming at you and going against you, and you feel this resistance. I believe that if you go against this resistance and push and have the same pattern, pushing, breaking down and kind of stopping your dreams, it makes it worse. You're supposed to go with the flow of it and not go against it. How do you feel about your clients that have experienced this? Have you noticed a pattern that when their vibration is raising, that there's resistance from all over?
Oh, yes, because you see, they're starting to play a bigger game. And it's like they have their arms around a bigger scene, a bigger piece of the action, as it were. And then with that, there's going to be some more discordant pieces coming. Now, it's because you're taking a bigger piece of the action, so to speak. On the other hand, what's happening, if you see the resistance and surrender to this process of what's emerging as you put out to your heart's desire and let it go. And then that next morning you take notes of this, that, and the other thing. I have to talk to legal. I have to go down here. I got to go to the bank. I've got to speak to the union. Whatever it is, you see, that you don't take it personally. It's simply energy and information of things that are not yet right. You see, so it's simply, if you're playing a big, you're going to have more challenges, more excitement, more energy, and rather than becoming a dread or fear, you get to look forward to it.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And then you go through that, and then you just go through that resistance, and then from there it changes, it shifts that energy, and the energy breaks up, I notice.
Lindsay, when you say you go through the resistance, I think it's simply appreciating resistance as your guidance. And you know that's resistance and simply because it doesn't feel quite right. There's a discord there.
Right.
But someone that is clear on what's working and what's not working and simply takes that as energy and information of things not yet handled, metabolized on their path to that full self-realization, and more especially self-actualization. They become the predominant creative force in their lives. And the resistance is simply, if it, like Rosanna Den, if it's not one thing, it's another. And if you get that, you're going to be happy.
Yes. You know that you're on the path to keep on going up. Right.
Exactly.
That's exactly how I feel. It makes so much sense. It really does.
Because you're you're translocated. You're more identified with a spiritual being, with being in flow, being happy, joyous, and free. It's like in the shower. The shower, I call it my shower theory. If you're in the shower, you're having a wonderful time. There's a flow and the heat and the temperature, and it's just right. And then something happens. The temperature changes, the pressure changes, and now at that moment, what is one to do? Why? Well, you can go crazy, but you really simply ought to adjust the taps.
Okay. It makes a lot of sense.
You handle what arises. Now, if something comes up, you don't know what it is. Okay, let me make a note of that. What does this mean? And you use the group conscience. You get advice and direction, and others will have the answer. And what happens? You become assured that your path is cleared.
Mhm. Yeah, it's one of those things. You start to recognize these things pop up.
You start to know yourself as that creative force, as being a creator, enjoying life, and doing what's best for all concerned, but having fun, having your visions and your family and relationships and your business and the way you want to be of service. The clearer that is, then the other pieces are simply the garden you take care of.
Yes. I absolutely love that. And I like being able to talk about this because I also wanted to bring up a point, too, because some people, if you think of it as the law of attraction as energy, there's some people that say, well, does this go along with, is it spirituality? Is it religion? Is it this? And I know we're not really meant to get stuck on that, and that's a whole other topic, but really it is all about, and how do you feel about that when you're explaining it to people?
It's really not a whole other topic. Let me say what I have to say about that. Yes, it is all energy and information. But at some level, when you talk about spirituality, and that's just a hop, skip, and a jump from religion, and then it's a hop, skip, and jump to beliefs and attitudes and religious wars, and people get... So what's happened is that their beliefs and attitudes, their thinking with spirituality, religion, beliefs, and pulls them into the quagmire again. Now, in essence, the consciousness, being awake, being in the flow, being in that aspect of that free-flowing essence of beingness has no name, has no label, has no taste, smell. It's just simply a still moving water, if you like. But as soon as you put a name and a label on it, you're in your ego, and you have to be careful of that. And most people have not effectively separate. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Hello. So it just tells us you're happy, but it's like the wind blowing through the trees. You know of its presence, but you don't know where it comes or goes. So those in that spirit, call it what you like. Call it the universal mind. It doesn't. See what I'm saying? So when we write it down, we can shake out the egoic pretensions in the matter.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, have you found that when you're doing these law of attraction type exercises with the writing and different things like that, is it something that you recommend people doing every day or every week, or do you talk about time-wise when you should do it for those people listening?
Well, it's really not formulaic. In other words, it's like, when are you going to write your mother? There's a time and a place that the energy will move you. But the initial stages are simply to get familiar with the layout of the journal, the various ways of looking at it. It's sort of like a potter's wheel. And you can throw your words wherever, but you start to say, well, how does this feel? And the feeling of the words, the meaning of the words and their feeling can orient you as where it might go. And then you look at it from different ways. And you're on your own. You're on your way, let's say. You're not on your own because we'll be glad to support you. But, yes, you should be able to become autonomous. Now, I should add, and I mentioned these 4 steps, these are levels of grasping the energy and information of what you think about and what's going on in your life. And if you have time or not, I'm glad to briefly go over those.
Definitely.
Well, our 4 steps are simply levels of learning, and they're very easy to grasp, except that to have written something and then revealing your thinking, you start to, if you intellectualize it, you miss the point. You sort of, in order to learn swimming, you have to get in the water and practice this move and that move, and then it becomes natural. And so our steps are in order, and they include the first being appreciating contrast. What we want our students to learn is simply discerning the contrast. This feels good, this doesn't feel so good, and getting a sense that their thoughts, their feelings are one feeling or another. And they're starting to just simply observe it, just being mindful of it. Like the shower. You're having a good shower, or then the temperature, pressure changes, and it's not so good. That's all, contrast. And
yes.
once that's wired in, we'd start to get that second step, which is being clear. Now, once, let's say, Steve, we talked about, appreciated the contrast with the miserable feelings having and the excitement he had starting the business, and then he started to write about it, and suddenly he became clear of that entire structure of his ego, of his thinking, of his patterns. That was another level of awakening, of being clear that I feel miserable, and I'm experiencing this miserable. At that moment, in that being clear, he was outside of the dilemma, and he could see what was going on. And then at that same time, in the quiet, in that little bit of stillness, like the eye of the hurricane, he could start to write about what he loved. And he opened up to what he truly loved about starting the business in the first place, and what he wanted and his hopes, and how he wanted to be of service, and the fun he was having. And that was really the third step of not only being clear, but moving into the third step of creating a compelling vision, expanding on yourself as a conscious creator. And as he became clear of the things he loved, and imagined this and intuited that, and wrote it down, he had a clear path forward filled with love and desire and hopes for his business and his life, his family, and himself. That's the third step. So now, because he was clear about what wasn't quite right yet, he saw that structure, that experience, and then could be clear about how he loved to be in the world, to show up as a creator. And then we get to that fourth step. It's all these are simple in a sense. If you're working with the material, they become intuitively obvious. Is that fourth step being surrender to the process, balancing serenity and passion, and taking only those harmonious and reasonable action steps that move this forward.
That's so powerful. Surrender is such a powerful.
So if you're someone that shoulds on yourself, you know the expression "thou shalt not should on yourself."
Yes.
We don't. No, there's no shoulding here. We say, if this is an action that feels reasonable and harmonious, well, go for it. If you feel the push, the pull, the should, the ought, hold off, and maybe take smaller pieces, but there's your guidance.
Yes, there it is, right there.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's so much good information. Now, before we go, I want you to tell us where we can go again, because I know you mentioned at the beginning of the show your website, but where we can find out more information about you and your website, where we can go. Absolutely.
Well, I'm Michael Perlman. I'm an MD psychiatrist, but this is another dimension. This is not so much psychiatry. This is called what's called transpersonal psychiatry, if you like. It's just finding yourself above and beyond the psychiatric dilemmas that people often find themselves. But with that said, it is at lawofattractionjournaling.com. Law of Attraction Journaling, JOURNALING.com. And sign up. As soon as you get there, you'll see my picture, and you'll sign up for our free journal, your own journal. It has its own unique password that's you only know that. It's all encrypted, and you can download it and put it on your PC and work with it from there. And you'll get the emails of further prompts and informations and teaching, and then the opportunity to join our Law of Attraction Journaling group, community on Facebook. And that we offer some prompts, some questions for people to try their hand on it. We answer questions, and certainly our Law of Attraction Journaling coaching seminar. We call it our Thursday coaching seminar at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's you'll get all that material. And just take it step by step. Read the guide inside, the starting guide, and take a look at those 4 steps. And as you get more and more, let's say, unconsciously confident, you're going to start to see changes, clarity, as you are a manifester of the law of attraction. because you're effectively separating what's wanted and what's not wanted.
I love that. I love it. Well, I'm really excited, and I just added your Facebook page, too. So I know that that's a good spot to go to, both places, Facebook and your website, and they can get their free journal. So that's excellent.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Dr. Michael. It was so great having you, and I know that people are getting a lot of good information about tonight's show.
Well, thank you for you, Lindsay, for who you are and what you do and the offerings you give to people. I am so grateful to share this with you.
Oh, thank you. I hope that you have a great night.
And thank you. Look forward to touching base again.